Now, if only past me knew what future me knew, finding good usable firewood definitely wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be, and getting a campfire going was a massive struggle. More on that in a little bit. It's also the middle of January, and we're expecting some bitter cold winter temperatures well below freezing. As we got into the mountains, I started to notice things were frozen. This lake here is completely frozen over. All the ditch water was frozen over, and there was no puddles, just patches of ice along the trail. But that's not going to hold us back. I love going out camping in the winter for a couple reasons. It's more of an adventure and a challenge trying to stay alive in the freezing cold. But the other thing too is nobody else is crazy enough to come out here. So you get a lot of peace and quiet and just sights that you would never get to yourself in the middle of the summer. So this is my story of camping with my friends in the middle of a Canadian winter. Now I do wish we had a little bit of snow on some of these back roads. It makes the adventure a lot more fun. But you can't have everything, I guess. But things are definitely a little bit frosty as we get up in elevation a little bit, where the sun doesn't touch any of the ground throughout the day. The route we have planned in Onyx Off-Road isn't going to take us up high enough in elevation to break through the snow line, but there's still some very awesome views all around us with the snow peaks on top of the mountains. As my regular viewers may know, I plan all of my routes on Onyx Off-Road. Today I'm testing out the new Navigate feature that they recently added. I built out the routes for this trip and the points of interest of where we're heading back from the comfort and warmth of my office back at home. I find it a lot easier to build routes from my computer, and then everything just automatically syncs to my phone and I have it ready to go when I'm out on my trip. Then it's just a matter of pulling up the route that I made and hit Navigate and we're off. I also like to do this in advance because I can see just how much range that I'm going to need with my truck and potentially how much extra fuel I might bring, because all the routes are going to give us all the distances. There's a link and a coupon code down in the description of the video if you want to check out Onyx Off-Road for yourself. And just like that, we popped out of the trees and into a clearing, which gave us a view of the campsite that we're going to be staying at tonight. Well, more so a view of the view from the campsite that we're going to be staying at tonight. This spot is absolutely awesome, and a huge thanks to Heather for suggesting this as a place to head to tonight. I have a bit of unfortunate news for you guys. I'm the only Jeep on today's run. We have John with his 4Runner and Heather and Jack with their Taco. Both capable adventure rigs, but they can't really compare to the awesomeness of the Demonator. But with Chef John with us, we know we're going to be eating good. Oh. Whew. Burr. Yeah, not a lot of wood up here.
That's a pretty cool thing to see when we first get here.
Yeah, hello. Greetings. Did he wave?
Did
you see
I
it?
waved and he waved back.
Did he actually?
Yeah.
Man, that's glassy down there.
Bring us some logs. Can we get down there?
Yeah,
totally,
we can.
yeah.
This is like typically, I just led us up here by accident, but that's typically where.
Well, there's a line right here.
Yeah, I see it.
We'll take
The actual
right here.
one's there.
You really want to push it?
You can get
Oof, man, you roll, you're not stopping.
Yeah, totally.
Definitely quads come up here, dirt bikes.
To get down there, we just have to backtrack a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
And then
yeah.
there's another road.
Well, there's some wood up here.
Yeah.
We can maybe chuck it down there. Oh, we could have a ton of people up here. Oh, look at that. Wow.
Oh wow, yeah.
Look at that.
Down below, when the water has the sun on it, it's like that really beautiful, like teal.
Oh, yeah.
water color.
There's minerals and crap from the... Yeah.
You can throw rocks off the edge.
All right, so I think we're going to pull down to the lower ridge and camp and drag some sticks and logs that we find. It's a little bit scattered around, but maybe we'll go on a little bit of an expedition and just drag a tree up here or something. Got a javelin it off the top of your head.
If I tried to do that, just go with
Yeah, just be wary of the momentum.
Well, they're notoriously.
Okay, well, remember where that log is for later. It is, it's freezing in the shade. See, there's frost that hasn't thawed. And there's a lot of frozen ditches and lakes on the way up. We just had no precipitation, even though it's freezing cold out. All right, let's get back down to the lower level. Set up camp, figure out our wood situation, get a rager going, get prepared to make those steaks. Looks so good. And of course, when one of us starts doing something dumb, the rest of us all have to follow suit.
I feel like if I don't do one, I'm gonna be left out.
All right, enough of that before I break something or do something stupid like flip my truck on the side, because it is definitely tall and has a lot of weight up top. And this surface is super uneven and I don't want to catch a tire. And yeah, here's a look at the filled-in quarry down below us, which is frozen solid. And over the course of the freezing temperatures overnight, the larger lake behind it had a fresh sheet of ice on it in the morning. Is he going to chase rocks if I throw them?
No. He's not gonna. Nope. Jasper.
Don't want him just like brain off.
I
don't think I threw it far enough.
went through the ice.
Quite a long ways down there. So before getting camp fully set up, we decided to take the taco for a wood run and see what we could scavenge all around. The first spot we found started to show us what we're going to be running into. And that's not just damp wood, but that's frozen damp wood. Usually in the winter when it's cold, if we can get a bit of a fire going, we can start to dry out the rest of the wood that we seem to collect up if it's too wet. But one of the things that we started to encounter, and is a huge problem with getting a fire going when it's super cold, is that the wood is frozen. So all the water inside it is like basically throwing a giant block of ice on the fire. It's really hard to get some of that wood started. We were basically just scavenging whatever we could to get a fire going. In hindsight, we probably should have brought a few bundles of wood and maybe a couple cheater logs so we get a nice set of hot coals going. And that probably would have helped a ton with thawing out some of this wood and using it to get a giant fire. But more on that in a little bit when we get back to camp. Now, this is the first time I've had this set up on the Gladiator. This is my Alley Cab Gen 3R that I used to have on the Wrangler. I got it put onto the Gladiator when it was over in Vancouver, and we are using the Alley Cab Contour canopy. I'm really digging truck life when it comes to overlanding. It's just so much more space to put my stuff in the bed of the truck, and now with the canopy, I can secure it all, and I don't have to worry about so much stuff flying around in the cab of the Jeep. Say an accident happens or something like that on the highway. I think it's a lot safer having the truck. But I'm really digging this setup, and after trying so many different configurations and rooftop tents on my Wrangler, I think I'm getting close to dialing it in. Now, I also brought a diesel heater to use for tonight, which is something that I've never taken with me out on the trail before. But with the weather forecast of it being super freaking cold, I decided let's give it a try and just see how much different the experience is and whether or not I have a better time. While I was setting up my tent, the wood chopping factory was in full swing, and I'm happy to say nobody lost an arm or a hand in this process. Now, one thing that dawned on me with having a canopy and loading gear in on the passenger side is once I set up my ladder to my rooftop tent, I'm not going to be able to open this door anymore. So I think I'm going to have to rethink exactly how I have my packing configuration a little bit in the bed of the truck, because I do need access to some of the stuff on this side. So I think I'm going to have to set everything up so that the gear that I need at camp is on the driver's side and on the back of the bed, and stuff that I access through the hatch on the passenger side is maybe like fuel and things that I might need while I'm out driving, some recovery gear or something like that. But how about this view from where I'm going to be sleeping tonight? John wasted no time trying to get a fire going. We had a little bit of dry wood, which helped us get this rolling, but it was a real struggle to get it going any larger than this. Now, I've tried all kinds of different fire setup designs, or whatever you want to call them, teepee designs, the log cabin design. I'm not quite sure which one works best for different scenarios, but we tried a little bit of everything on this trip, and we restacked and reorganized this fire several times to try to get some of this wood warmed up and dry and thawed out so that we could get a huge raging bonfire going, which is one of my favorite things to do in the winter because there's no fire restrictions. And while we ended up building a very pretty looking fire setup, it just turned out to be not very functional, and we're going to tear this down in a little bit. But we thought it'd be a good idea to maybe go get some more wood here in a few minutes. Now, as I mentioned, this is the first time I've actually taken a diesel heater with me camping. I have one at home that I have from a company called H Calorie. It's one of those Chinese brands, and it seems to work pretty good when I need to use it to dry out things like my tent after a long weekend of wet and rainy camping. So I thought it would be reliable enough to bring with me, and it's fairly compact. It just basically looks like a toolbox, and you attach a hose and an exhaust pipe to it. Now, for powering it, I have a Blue Sea sub panel in the back that has 12 volt feeding off of my EcoFlow that rides inside the cab of the Jeep. And so I just set up a wire off of that, and that gives me all the amperage I need to get it going. I know a lot of these diesel heaters, you can't really run off the 12 volt cigarette plug on the portable power stations because they need about 15 amps at startup. But the way I have set it up, it's got a 30 amp circuit, so lots of power to fire this thing up. And it worked really well and made it super easy for setting this up. I didn't have to run cables or wires all over the place. I just plugged it in. I'm just going to keep this wire hanging in the back of my truck. But I think I'm going to remake this and make it a little bit longer. So I want to be able to tuck the diesel heater in underneath the truck in case it's pouring rain. I don't think this is a waterproof, although there is a little cover over the control panel. I'd just prefer if it wasn't sitting out in the rain all night long and potentially died when I really need it. Now, for getting the heat into the tent, the AliCab Gen 3R has a little pass-through next to the door, but it's really tight and really small, and it's actually pretty far from where I have the diesel heater. Now, I did manage to get it in there, but it kind of deformed the tube that I'm using to get the heat into the tent. And later on, I moved it to the back window, which I think is a much better solution. It's closer, it's easier to put into the tent, and it worked completely fine. I'm actually looking at 3D printing a little vent hose to go on the end of it that will let the zipper close up nice and tight around it, which is actually a future idea for a video I've got in the works, and that is 3D printing Jeep parts and camping accessories. I've got a whole list of different things that I've been working on, and I thought it would be a good idea to make a video about 3D printers because, as it turns out, they are way easier to use than I thought they were. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, let me know, and hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for some of the videos coming out over the next month or two. Now, the one thing I really like about this diesel heater is it has Bluetooth, and I can connect to it with my phone, which was super handy for figuring out just how hot I want it to run it in the tent. And it turns out I had to run it on the lowest setting. Anything above that, I was absolutely cooking in my tent. But it was really nice to be able to make those adjustments from my phone and not have to rely on some cheap little remote that it comes with, or get out of my tent in the middle of the night when it's way below freezing out. And here's a look at how the vent actually goes into the tent. I really wasn't happy with the setup. This is a good pass-through if you need to send some cables. I usually send a power bar up here to charge my phone and stuff. And yes, I am using a CO monitor. I do not want to get carbon monoxide poisoning. The other thing that I noticed and really liked about having a diesel heater is, well, after I set up all my bedding, it didn't get cold. Well, at least it wasn't cold when I came to bed. I was able to fire the diesel heater up about 10 or 20 minutes before I came to bed using my phone, so I could do it from the comfort of my chair. And that heated the entire tent up and took the chill off and took any of that damp coldness away from my sleeping gear, which usually happens if you just set up your sleeping gear several hours in advance. I also ended up coming to bed a little bit early because it was so cold out, and it was super nice and toasty in my tent, and I just sat back and watched a couple of videos before falling asleep for the night. Oh yeah, and the other thing with using this pass-through on the tent, it's really kind of hard to get to. There's no real easy way to climb up and get the vent hose in there other than hanging off the side of your ladder or straddling the tire and the rock sliders on my truck. So passing it through the back window is far easier to set up. You can either stand on the back of the tailgate or you can actually just pass it through while you're on the ladders. You don't need to hang off so far to the side. And I can't forget to set up what I think might be the camping product of the year. This is the Devos Light Ranger 2000. This is super handy for providing different colors of light, whether it's red, orange, or white light. And it's super bright, so when you need something for cooking or seeing where you're going, you just set this up and it illuminates the whole area. Let's check in with the crew and see how the fire is going, because it does not look like it's a raging fire yet.
Smolders out.
One of those fires, hey?
Yeah.
Ah, boy. Gasoline time.
Diesel actually would be better.
John, run into town and grab some wood. You haven't set up yet. We chop. We need to cut. We need more edges. We got too many rounds in there.
That might be better.
So we decided to chop all the wood down into really small chunks to see if that would help it thaw out a little better and get this fire going. And I really thought we would have some better luck, but this wood is really damp and frozen right through. It was just fighting us all night to get going. We really had a nice pile going, and I thought this was going to be all we needed to have a great fire all night, but I was wrong. Chef John and I decided to take another adventure with the 4Runner and see if we could scavenge any drier wood that we found lying around or in piles, maybe not sitting in the ground. Managed to get a few rounds of wood off of this slash pile, but it was looking pretty frozen and damp as well. John and I found another tree that was downed off to the side of the road, so we hiked in a little bit and cut a few rounds off of that, but it can be deceiving when the wood is completely frozen. Either way, John busted out the chainsaw, knocked a few rounds off. I helped him carry them back to the 4Runner. We definitely exceeded the cargo capacity of his truck with all the wood that we stuffed in there. Regardless of whether or not this wood was going to be any good for our fire, it's always fun to bust out the chainsaw, chop up some logs, and then see just how many of them you can fit into the back of a Toyota 4Runner before the suspension completely bottoms out. All right, so Jack is going to cut that up.
Yeah, Jack's gonna cut it
He's in
up.
charge of chopping. Oh, your tailgate's open.
Yeah, it's gonna be mad at us for the whole trip back. Oh, my backup camera doesn't work that well right now.
Keep going. Hang on, I got one. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going.
Dude,
Look at that.
that's what I call.
Look at the mother load.
That's
The only problem with this,
it's frozen.
you're chopping it all.
That's fine.
We had to go into the bush and drag these out.
Do we know what brand it is yet?
It's an outdoor brand.
I know. What type of tree is it?
Timu.
I mean, it's Canadian.
It's Trimu.
Tree
It's Trimu.
It doesn't come from China.
It's
It doesn't
Trimu.
come from China.
No, it goes to China. Now, Jack thought he was getting off easy by chopping up these little logs. Well, I had a new challenge for him.
I feel like that TikTok guy now. I need like the suspenders. Yeah.
Oh, I saw a crack.
It split.
Yeah,
I will not be able to hit the same mark. Trust me.
can't even see it. Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, I didn't think I'd be able to do that.
See, just need someone to push you and make fun of you if you don't. Hey!
Really anticlimactic.
It was.
Like, you're just like, eh.
Clicmactic.
Now do the rest of them. We'll use the 16-inch bar to knock these in half. Oh yeah, there you go. See,
No way.
got 3 S's and a no.
I believe in you, Peter.
Oh, that was a big
Yeah,
Big crack down there. Give it a good smack.
Come on, you guys. Gotta concentrate here.
Hey.
Hey, halfway down.
Finish him.
Hey.
Done.
Kinda.
I mean, to To be fair, I think that's more the chair's win than yours.
Chair finished it off. I'm hiring the chair. Gotta hand it to him. He took the challenge, never quit, and chopped up every one of those oversized logs. Well done, Jack. Now, it may look like this fire is up and running, and we're trying to use it to dry out those logs that Jack just chopped up. But the only reason that it's raging like this is we have a fan pointed underneath, and it is fueling it with a ton of oxygen. As soon as we kept pulling that fan away, the fire would start to die out fairly quickly. We were hoping that the heat from the fire and the wind blowing across it would start to thaw out and dry some of these logs next to it. That just wasn't the case. So we also decided to pull out the Easy Up so that we can hold some of the heat underneath it, at least try to stay a little bit warm. Because once that sun dropped behind the mountains, the temperature started to plunge really quick and it was getting well below freezing. After a few hours of messing around with the fire and trying our best to get it going, it was dinner time and we needed to open this up and get some coals because we brought the giant squawk to cook these massive ribeyes that we just picked up from the butcher. Earlier in the day, as we're making our way up island, we made a quick stop at a butcher called Smith & Lee. I actually met one of the owners at Jeepapalooza last year, and I said I would stop in next time I'm in town. Albeit 9 months later, I kept to my word. So many massive corporations out there, I never turn up a chance to support a small business owner trying to make a name for themselves. You find yourself in Vancouver Island and in Campbell River, go check these guys out and grab some meat. You won't be disappointed. On our menu for tonight, it's going to be steak, and lots of it. As you'll see later in the video, Chef John did an amazing job cooking up these awesome cuts of meat that we picked up, and I 100% will be stopping back in here next time I find my way up island. I may have also grabbed a couple snacks for the road. I couldn't pass up an opportunity to try some turkey pepperoni, and it was absolutely excellent. Now back at camp, Chef John started to get things ready, and here you can see just how useful the Devos Light Ranger is when at camp and you need some light to see what we're doing. It also helps me a ton with shooting so you guys can see what's going on. Once we're done cooking, we can switch it over to the red setting so that we can still see where we're walking around in the pitch black without blowing up our night vision. As our last ditch effort to try to get this fire going, Jack decided to chop up some of the wood into the smallest pieces possible to see if we could get it to catch and get going. It was time to cook. What we're cooking on is called the squawk. It's a carbon steel giant pan. It came with the lava box that I used in the propane campfire showdown, and I think its best use is cooking over the campfire. Unless you're bringing the propane fire, then obviously use it on there, but it fits great over an open fire. It gets super hot, and it's a lot of fun. Now, as it started to get dark, John pointed out that 4 planets were in alignment. I'm not sure if the camera is going to pick them up, but I tried my best to get the 3 that were out when I was shooting. It was really kind of a cool sight. It's these super bright lights that you see in the sky. Those aren't stars, those are planets, and they're all lined up in a row. Doesn't get much better than this. Cooking some giant ribeye steaks over an open campfire in the middle of the winter. As per usual, Chef John exceeded expectations and did an amazing job despite it being freezing cold and trying to work over a fire that was constantly trying to go out. The steaks were cooked to absolute perfection. As well, he brought some roasted potatoes to go with it. While Chef John's cooking is always amazing, a hot meal just seems to taste a little bit better when you're out camping in the freezing cold of the winter. We took refuge under the Easy Up and huddled around our dying campfire to try to get as much warmth from it as we could while we enjoyed this amazing meal. Some of you guys might think we're crazy for coming out and camping in some of this weather. Some of you guys think we might not know how to build a fire. But every trip that I go on, I always seem to learn something new, and I always enjoy the challenge. It's a lot harder to go camping in the middle of the winter than it is in the middle of the summer. After we ate dinner, we hung out around our dying campfire for a little bit longer, and then one by one, we all decided to head to bed. I must say, it was really nice getting into a warm and cozy tent that had the diesel heater running. And I don't really mind a little quiet time to myself and relaxing out in nature before falling asleep for the night. In the morning, we tried to figure out just how cold it actually got out overnight.
That's how cold it got?
That's what Chuck said. I don't quite believe it.
Well, I'm definitely more of a believer in the diesel heater now.
Yeah.
It's super dry in there. I had it on low,
Yeah.
which was like the perfect temperature to just be inside my sleeping bag.
I think my favorite thing so far is the USB heating mat. I put it in, it's got a fleece top on it, and I put it inside my sleeping bag.
That's how I have mine set up.
It's the warmest thing I use.
I set the diesel, it was at like 5 out of 10.
Yeah.
And I couldn't even have my sleeping bag on. And I was just sitting there watching YouTube.
Yeah.
And I was like just in my boxers, no sleeping bag,
First world overlap.
just cooking. And so when I went to go to bed, I was like, I turned it right down to 1.
Yeah.
And it was the perfect temperature because I could have my sleeping bag on, no heated pad, just have my sleeping bag over me. And the air was cool enough in the tent that I felt like I could breathe properly. But because of all the dry, just warmish air, there's no condensation, no anything inside the tent. And everything was just warm to a touch. John said it was -10 overnight.
That's
Celsius.
what the truck said.
You can see the exhaust on the diesel heater. There's a thawed piece of ground 1 inch around the exhaust.
Yeah.
If you zoom in on your camera, part of that lake is frozen.
Yeah.
Where it's not ripply.
Well, this
one here.
This whole
part
last
frozen.
section was not frozen last night.
Yeah.
So that whole kind of
It was cold. It was super
We
cold.
got a nice stack of wood for.
Whoever shows up here next, because we're just gonna leave all our wood. I think the conclusion is that any green wood just has too much moisture in it. And because it's so cold, the moisture is also freezing. So in order to use it as firewood, first we have to thaw the wood, then dry the wood, then it catches on fire. So it's basically like putting giant frozen blocks of ice on your fire, and that was the struggle last night.
I'm not gonna lie, my opinion has been changed about diesel heaters. And here you can see where I ended up routing the hose into the side. So I think when I print that little vent attachment, I can be able to close the zipper up nice and tight. I think this is the perfect setup for me for running the diesel heater in my tent. Here's a cold start for you guys before we wrap up the video. The demeter sounds mean in the morning, and I'm sure woke up all kinds of creatures and critters for miles around. My truck says it's -4 degrees Celsius out, even though the sun's been up for a couple hours and it's already starting to feel a lot warmer than when I originally woke up. I think this is one of the coldest nights that I ever camped in, but I was so comfy in my warm tent all night long. And on the drive down from the mountain, there's still some spots where it was -7 and -8 degrees. As always, I had a great time getting out, seeing some of my friends, checking out a new campsite, and enduring the challenge of winter camping. I hope you guys enjoyed coming along on this adventure. I'm sure some of you will have your own opinions and feedback on how to start a fire and how to get one going with frozen and cold wood. I will read the comments, so leave your opinions down in there. I will check them out later. If you have any questions, leave them down there as well. My name's Casey. Thanks so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button. I upload new videos all the time. I would love to see you back here on the channel, and have a great week.